The village of Aloe was the kind of place that looked peaceful from far away. Tall palm trees swayed slowly in the wind, red earth roads stretched between mud houses, and the sound of goats and children filled the afternoon air. But beneath that calm surface was a silence that visitors could feel but never explain, the kind of silence that hides stories people refuse to talk about. Late one evening, a dusty motorcycle stopped at the entrance of the village. Behind it walked three young graduates carrying bags and looking exhausted from the long journey. They were new corpers posted to serve in the village for the year. Tunde, the tallest of the three, wiped sweat from his forehead and looked around. "Is this the place?" he asked. Ada laughed tiredly. "It has to be, unless NYSC decided to hide us from the rest of the country." The third corper, Musa, adjusted his backpack and stared quietly at the trees surrounding the village. Something about the place felt strange. Not dangerous, just strange. A group of children ran past them shouting and laughing, but when the children noticed the strangers, they slowed down. They stared, then ran away. Tunde chuckled. "Great, we're already celebrities." But Musa noticed something else. The elders sitting under a large tree were not smiling. They were watching, carefully. One of the men stood up and approached them slowly. "You are the new teachers," he said. It wasn't a question. Ada nodded politely. "Yes, sir, we were posted here." The man studied their faces for a moment before speaking again. "The king will want to see you." The three friends exchanged glances. Tunde whispered, "Already? We just arrived." But nobody in the village was smiling, and that was the first sign something was wrong. They were taken through the village toward a large building that stood at the center. Unlike the other houses, this one looked older, stronger, as if it had been standing there long before the rest of the village was built. Two guards stood outside the entrance holding long staffs. The air suddenly felt heavier. Inside, the room was dimly lit by lanterns. At the far end sat the king. He was old, not weak old, but the kind of old that carried power and stories. Red beads hung around his neck and wrists. His crown rested slightly forward, as if its weight had been carried for many years. Beside him stood several chiefs. None of them looked welcoming. The three corpers bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty," Ada said. The king studied them silently. For a long time. So long that Tunde began to feel uncomfortable. Finally, the king spoke. "You are welcome to Aloe." His voice was calm but deep. "This village will treat you well if you respect its ways." Musa nodded quickly. "Yes, Your Majesty." The king leaned slightly forward. "But there is something you must understand before you begin your stay here." The room became even quieter. Outside, the wind pushed softly against the palace walls. The king continued. "There is a forest beyond this village." Ada and Tunde exchanged glances. "A forest?" The king's voice hardened slightly. "No one from this village enters that forest." The chiefs nodded slowly. "It is forbidden." Tunde tried to smile politely. "Your Majesty, we understand." But curiosity had already started forming inside his mind. The king's eyes moved across their faces as if he could read their thoughts. "Young people often believe warnings are exaggerations," he said. "But some places in this world are not meant to be explored." The lantern flame flickered. Musa swallowed. "What is inside the forest?" he asked quietly. For the first time, the chiefs shifted uneasily. The king did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the doorway, toward the direction of the forest. Then he said slowly, "Things that were never meant to follow humans home." A chill ran through the room. Tunde forced a small laugh. "Your Majesty, we will stay away." The king held his gaze. "You must." Then he added something that made the room feel colder. Because the last people who ignored that warning, he paused, never truly returned. Silence swallowed the palace. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. The meeting was over. The corpers were dismissed. Night came quickly in Aloe. The village settled into darkness except for a few lanterns glowing inside homes. Inside the small house given to them, the three corpers sat around a wooden table. Tunde broke the silence first. "Okay, that was dramatic." Ada sighed. "You didn't feel that?" "Feel what?" "The fear." Musa finally spoke. The king wasn't joking. Tunde leaned back in his chair. "Come on, every village has stories to scare strangers." Ada looked toward the window. Far away beyond the houses, the tops of tall trees formed a dark wall against the sky. The forest. "Still," she said quietly, "I wonder why nobody goes there." Tunde smiled. "That's exactly why we should." Musa shook his head immediately. "No." But curiosity is a powerful thing, especially for people who believe the world still has secrets waiting to be discovered. Later that night, while the village slept, the wind moved through the trees again, but this time it carried a sound, a distant echo, something between a whisper and a cry, from the direction of the forbidden forest. The next day, the village looked normal again. Children played, farmers worked, women sold food in the market. But every time the Corpers mentioned the forest, people became quiet. Too quiet. One old woman even dropped the vegetable she was holding. "Do not talk about that place," she warned. "Some things listen when their names are spoken." That only made Tunde more interested. By evening, he had convinced the others. "Just a quick look," he said. "We won't go deep." Ada hesitated. Musa refused at first, but eventually curiosity won. As the sun began to disappear, the three of them walked toward the edge of the village, toward the trees. The same trees the king had warned them about. Behind them, unnoticed, an old man watched, and slowly shook his head. The forest entrance was darker than it should have been, even though the sky still held some light. Tall trees stood close together like silent guards. The air was cooler, heavier. Ada stopped walking. "Maybe we should go back." Tunde laughed nervously. "We've come this far." Musa looked behind them. The village already seemed far away. Too far. Then the wind moved through the forest, and the trees began to whisper. Something deep inside the forest shifted. A sound, a movement. Not an animal. Something else. Ada grabbed Tunde's arm. "Did you hear that?" Before he could answer, a shape moved between the trees. Fast, watching, waiting. Then another, and another. Musa whispered the words none of them wanted to say. "We're not alone." The forest suddenly became alive. Branches snapped, leaves exploded into motion. Something was coming, running, straight toward them. And whatever it was not human. "Run!" Tunde shouted. They turned and sprinted deeper into the forest without thinking. Behind them, something followed. Fast, closer, closer. The darkness swallowed them, and deep inside the forbidden forest, something had finally found new visitors.